The U.S. Defense Department's annual report on China's military, released in November, again illustrated the breathtaking pace and scale of China's conventional military modernization. The report also highlighted several developments that could threaten the U.S. more directly than China's conventional forces, namely China's large-scale expansion of its nuclear forces. That expansion is well documented. The Pentagon's 2020 report on China's military noted that Beijing's stockpile of nuclear warheads would at least double by the end of the decade. But this year's report includes a more urgent message. China has accelerated its nuclear expansion and is exceeding the pace and size the DoD projected in 2020, the Pentagon said. This month, a Chinese arms control official denied those assertions, but Beijing's work is still seen as troubling. It's also a reminder of just how small China's nuclear arsenal was, and as compared to other major powers, and it shows how dramatically Chinese thinking about nuclear weapons has shifted in recent years. The Pentagon estimates that China's stockpile of nuclear warheads is in the low 200s, though other estimates have put it as high as 350. By comparison, the US and Russia are believed to have 5,550 and 6,255 warheads, respectively, though they have agreed to limits on how many can be deployed. The lower estimate isn't that much larger than other nuclear powers. The UK is believed to have 225 warheads, France 290, India 156, and Pakistan 165. Israel and North Korea are believed to have stockpiles ranging from several dozen to a few hundred warheads. China's smaller arsenal is in part a legacy of Sino-Soviet dynamics during the Cold War. China initially received extensive help on its nuclear weapons from the Soviet Union, but the Sino-Soviet split in the late 1950s left China on its own. Beijing detonated its first nuclear weapon in 1964, and its first thermonuclear weapon in 1967. While other powers developed multiple delivery systems, the air, ground, and sea-launched weapons of the nuclear triad, Beijing initially struggled to do so, and the high cost of such weapons further limited how many China, then one of the poorest countries in the world, could make. Moreover, China's need to modernize its military in the face of more immediate conventional threats limited the resources China could spare on nuclear weapons. China also adopted a no-first-use policy, essentially precluding their use as offensive weapons. Given limited defense resources, the Chinese mainly focused on conventional forces and the modernization of a small deterrent nuclear force. Timothy Heath, a senior international and defense researcher at the Rand Corporation think tank, told Insider. As the Cold War ended, China's threat perception changed. The Soviets disappeared, while the US became something of a partner. Those shifts in the 1990s and early 2000s allowed China to become the world's second-largest economy, which in turn enabled its immense military modernization effort. China first focused on conventional capabilities, but that effort has expanded. There's plenty of money available to buy fancy platforms like stealth aircraft, aircraft carriers, and a much larger nuclear arsenal, Heath said. The Pentagon said China hopes to have 700 deliverable nuclear warheads by 2027 and at least 1,000 warheads by 2030. According to the report, China is constructing fast breeder reactors and reprocessing facilities that will increase its capacity to produce plutonium to support this expansion. China is also expanding and modernizing all legs of its nuclear triad. It is building more silos on the ground and increasing its ICBM arsenal, now estimated to number about 100. In 2020, China launched over 250 ballistic missiles, exceeding the total launched in 2018 and 2019. The Chinese are also implementing a launch on warning posture they call early warning counterstrike, which relies on large ground-based phased array radars and geostationary early warning satellites, at least one of which is already in orbit. China's Navy is adding more Type 094 Gen-class nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarines. Type 094 subs are armed with JL-2 ballistic missiles, the range of which requires the subs to operate around Hawaii to reach the continental U.S. But, according to the Pentagon, China is working on a newer sub, the Type 096, to pair with a new missile, the JL-3, that could reach the U.S. mainland from Chinese waters. China's Air Force has adopted the H-6N, the latest variant of its H-6 strategic bomber. The H-6 and can conduct aerial refueling, which extends its range, and carry air-launched ballistic missiles. Last year, an H-6 and was spotted carrying what was believed to be a hypersonic missile. The overarching goal of China's military modernization is to reach parity and establish deterrence with the U.S. China fears the U.S., with more nuclear weapons and a mature triad, could launch a preemptive strike against China's nuclear arsenal and launch capabilities, leaving China without adequate defenses. This has led Beijing to pursue more weapons and delivery systems so it has enough to survive an attack and to overcome U.S. missile defenses. What they are trying to do is build enough missiles on enough platforms that the Chinese can be absolutely confident that they can't get missiles past U.S. defenses and strike U.S. territory in the event of nuclear war, he said. The Chinese hope to make it impossible for the U.S. to be confident it can carry out a preemptive strike that annihilates China's nuclear capabilities. The U.S. has called on China to join talks on an arms control agreement similar to those between the U.S. and Russia, but Beijing has shown no interest, pointing to the U.S.'s larger stockpile and lack of a no-first-use policy. While the expansion of its nuclear arsenal could be the clearest example of China's preparation for a potential conflict, it's just one element of a broader buildup that troubles military officials and policymakers. It's important to see the modernizing nuclear arsenal as part of the bigger picture, in which the Chinese are building up their military capabilities in space, cyberspace, and in the conventional force, he said. It's all happening at the same time.